The mission is simple: to help high achievers naturally eliminate emotional and physical obstacles so they can optimize their life for higher achievement. Welcome. You have just entered the Genesis Zone. Good day and welcome to the Genesis Zone show. This is Dr. Brian Brown, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. I know there are other places that you could be right now, and you've chosen to be with us. So thank you. Even if you're watching this on replay, thank you for being here. So the title of today's show is really interesting. What do I mean by that? Well, what ended up happening is that when I decided on today's show, what your DNA determines your DNA. Have you ever been a place where you've wondered whether or not, some people seem to be in a good spot when it comes to their health and wellness journey, but other people, maybe even yourself, seem to be behind the eight ball when it comes to, a wellness journey? Well, I mean, if that's you, then definitely you're in the right place, because today we're going to be talking about that. And I'm going to be unpacking what I mean when I'm talking about DNA. And here's a little hint. It's more than just your genetics. Okay. So in Tuesday's segment, I interviewed meditation expert Maricela Robles. And her journey into becoming a meditation expert is quite interesting. Now she teaches others how to develop the skill of meditation, and she also helps parents help their children learn how to meditate also. She's an amazing person. It was a great interview. I hope we're able to have, this is the second time we've had her on. I hope to have her back again, because I personally have received direct messages on Instagram and Facebook, text messages from people that know me saying, man, these segments are absolutely amazing and very, very helpful. They're really helping me see some things about myself and helping change things in my life. Now, this was a quotable quote that Maricela gave us, and it was such an amazing gift. And the quote is this: "We are not comfortable with being uncomfortable." Let that sink in a minute. We're not comfortable being uncomfortable. No truer words could be spoken. Everyone is on an individual journey. Somewhere on the timeline of time, we're on our own individual journeys. So why do we get caught up in comparasitis? That's what I call it. I don't know any other way to call it other than comparasitis, because it's an inflammation of the comparison joint, and that joint is all over your body. And some people are so afflicted with it, they're walking around crippled by it. I mean, the perfect world, quote unquote, that people project on social media is far from perfect. I mean, every single person listening to this podcast, listening to this live show right now, can think of at least 10 other people from your own sphere of influence who are virtual train wrecks, yet they project this quote unquote perfect world life on social media. And when we look at them, we go, oh, there's no way. And we know that in the back of our mind, yet we get caught up in all these people that we don't even know that are our quote unquote friends. And we get caught up in their life and like, oh, look at their life. They're in Athens, Greece. They're traveling here. They're traveling there. They look at their relationship. Their relationship is perfect. And I got to be honest with you guys, nothing could be further from the truth. I would venture a guess, and there's not a study that I know of that's been done, but I would venture a guess that less than 5% of people who project themselves on social media are actually living the perfect life. I mean, we're human, right? So the human experience is far from perfect, but putting that out there to lead other people to believe that you have this perfect life, it's exhausting. I mean, so why even do that? But anyway, Maricela encouraged us to, and I'm really roughly paraphrasing here. She encouraged us to stay in our own lane, concentrate on numero uno, and leave all the other distractions alone. She spoke to us about the science of meditation, how it can improve memory, how yoga is a form of meditation. And she gave us a simple technique that can help us deal with stress on the fly, no matter what. And another gold nugget that she shared with us was, and I'm quoting, "It took you years to be this stressed out. Don't expect an immediate relief from meditation. It'll take some time, but keep at it because it's worth it." And that leads perfectly into today's segment. You've heard me talk about studies that show how meditation and mindfulness actually decrease inflammation by cutting off the bad genes that cause inflammation. But how does, as the title of today's episode says, how does your DNA determine your DNA? And what do I mean by that? Well, let's look first at what I mean by DNA when I'm using that. If you recall from middle school science class, DNA, as we all learn, stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. Now, don't get caught up in that terminology because we're focusing less on genetics. But for the sake of this segment, DNA means dynamic natural agility. So what do I mean when I'm talking about dynamic natural agility? Well, here's a little quick exercise. It only take a few seconds. Right now, I want you to think of at least five nagging complaints that can be physical or emotional or a mix of both, that you're having on a consistent basis that bug you regularly. Okay, think of 5 complaints, physical or emotional, that are nagging you or bugging you consistently. You have them? Great. So here's the key. Take that list visually in your mind, and the impact of these challenges, these complaints, these symptoms is more than the sum of their parts. You see, we have a tendency to view each symptom in a compartmentalized little box, and we don't look at the totality of everything. But you know, and I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that, well, I thought my DNA had to do with my genes. And I have to be honest to you, while the two are synonymous in this phrase, does your DNA determine your DNA, or your DNA does determine your DNA? The two are synonymous. In this particular case, we are looking at your resilience, your agility to overcome, or over the course of your life, the totality of your resilience and your agility. Part of that does include your genetic makeup. Therefore, your DNA or your genetics do determine your DNA, your dynamic natural agility. So your genetics determine your dynamic natural agility. That's where the title of today's episode came from. But it's really so much more than that. Allow me to break it down. The definition of agility, if we go to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, agility is defined as the ability to move quickly and easily. Merriam-Webster's also defines dynamic as a force that stimulates change or progress within a system or process. So when it comes to agility, this ability to move quickly and easily, as a normal human being and under normal circumstances, we feel this constant pressure to be on top of our game at all times, emotionally and physically. Now, this pressure comes with a dynamic landscape, both internal and external, with obstacles that are constantly moving and changing. Okay. So you've heard that phrase, it's like hitting a moving target. Well, that's what agility is. There's this dynamic landscape where the landscape is constantly changing, and we are having to adjust in our ability to move quickly and easily through this obstacle course. So you are surrounded by forces that bring about change in your body, bring about change in your mind, bring about change in your life and in your business. And these forces truly stimulate change and contribute to your progress and success. You are influenced by your victories, your defeats, your hurdles, your peers, your family and friends, your mindset, your nutrition, your breathing, your meditation, your mindfulness, your mind-body coherence, your hormones, your age, your genetics. You get the idea. There are a lot of outside and internal, inside influences and forces that mold and shape our mental and physical destiny, so to speak. You depend on these dynamic forces, and you deserve to master them instead of being controlled by them. So many people passively go through life controlled by the dynamic forces in their life because they lack agility in this dynamic landscape. So with all that being said, your dynamic natural agility, or your DNA, occurs on a spectrum or continuum. Now, a spectrum or continuum just simply means you've got this horizontal line drawn across the piece of paper. And on one end, you've got an outcome that you don't necessarily want. And on one end, on the other end, you've got an outcome that you do want. So for this example, this dynamic natural agility spectrum, on the left end of the spectrum is your lack of ability, or your lack of agility to maintain balance and optimization. Now, on the right end of the spectrum is your ability or your agility to move, excel, succeed, adapt, achieve, and overcome obstacles, physical or emotional, that are in your way. But as with any spectrum or continuum, this spectrum is definitely fluid. It's fluid year to year. It's fluid month to month. It's fluid day by day, hour by hour, second by second. There are fluctuations toward the right or to the left going on all the time in your body. Our bodies are perfectly designed in a perfect world to keep us in a state of balance, or the scientific term is homeostasis. Okay. So our bodies are perfectly designed to keep us in that place where we're balanced. We're not too far to the left, and we're well into being on the right end of the spectrum where we need to be. And the goal with dynamic natural agility is to move from the left-hand side, where we lack this agility to move through the obstacles in our environment, toward the right end of the spectrum and stay on the right end of the spectrum. So the question comes up all the time, Brian, will I ever be 100%? Well, probably not. Not 100% of the time. There may be moments in time, days, weeks, months, or maybe even a year where you're 100%. But that's a recipe for failure. So don't do that to yourself. What I ask of people when we're looking at the spectrum and dynamic natural agility, this process that I've worked out, is that we're looking for 51% or better toward the right side of the spectrum, toward the ability to be agile and moving in this dynamic environment. And yes, that's where all the magic happens, is on the right-hand side of the spectrum. So you see, we're not shooting for 100%. If it happens, great. It's icing on the cake. But if we can get 51%, then we're what we call right leaning. We're on the right end of the spectrum. And we have this agility to be able to maneuver and around these obstacles that come in our way, these dynamic obstacles that are there one minute, not there the next. And, oh, well, there's 20 over here and there's 1 or 2 over here. And then it flip flops and it's constantly changing. You see, our goal is to control the obstacles, those dynamic obstacles, and our ability to be agile, control the ones that we can control, and don't worry about the rest. Because there's this amazing phenomenon that happens on the dynamic natural agility spectrum, the DNA spectrum. A 1% or a 3% or a 9% positive impact can seem minuscule to us. But inside our body, that little bitty micro change, that's what I call them, these micro changes, they may very well be the one domino that's needed to topple all the other dominoes in order to resolve multiple other DNA spectrum issues. In other words, a little 1% positive impact could end up having a 15, 25%, or possibly even 80% or 100% impact toward the positive. It happens over and over again. I see this play out in clinical practice where when we're working with somebody's genetics, we get one little thing changed and boom, we think in the grand scheme of things, this one little thing represents maybe 10% of what's going on with this person. But we topple that one domino and we get 75, 80, 85% improvement. And it happens all the time. It's critically important to wrap your head around dynamic natural agility. It's critically important to understand that the totality of who you are resides on that dynamic natural agility spectrum. But it isn't just one spectrum. There are hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands of these spectrums going on all the time. The problem is there are some that are hidden that we can't control, and there are some that are visible that we can control. Remember, control what you can control, and don't worry about the rest, because we're looking for that one domino to topple that's going to topple all the rest of the ones, even the ones that we can't even see right now, or we can't even touch, or we can't even modify. So that's the beauty of working with epigenetics and nutrigenomics, is genetically your DNA does affect your dynamic natural agility, and vice versa. Your dynamic natural agility affects the expression of your genetics or your DNA. So it's interchangeable. The terminology that I use for the title of today's episode, it goes both ways. But understanding and wrapping our head around what dynamic natural agility means for us is so critically important when it comes to understanding who we are as humans, how will we react to our external environment, how we react to our internal environment, and the places that we can jump into the pool to start making changes for the positive in our lives. And as Maricela said, meditation is one of those things. It's a huge thing, actually. It has multiple, it topples a huge domino that takes care of a lot of other dominoes. Okay. And that's just one example. There are multiple examples in my Gene Hack Accelerator program, which is a group program where we actually check your genetics and we go in a deep dive and I teach you how to interpret your genetics. We do a baseline assessment of your dynamic natural agility. We want to know where you are in multiple areas. So we're assessing as many of the visible dynamic natural agility spectrums as we possibly can. And then once we have that baseline, then we start looking, we put that lens on to interpret what your genetics are. And we use that lens to interpret and move forward and build out a blueprint or a plan for the rest of your life, because your genetics are going to stay the same. Okay. It's just a matter of whether the light switch is cut on or off. And quite frankly, we want good light switches to be cut on. We want bad light switches to be cut off. And sometimes they're reversed, which is not good for us. So with the Gene Hack Accelerator, we're able to work through that process and put a plan in place and start implementing that plan immediately in this 11 to 12 week program. And get amazing results. I've been doing this one for years now, and on a one-on-one basis, I could sit here for another hour or two and just tell you story after story after story of the results that we've gotten with clients. The only way into the Gene Hack Accelerator is to go through the boot camp, the Gene Hack Bootcamp. We just finished the Gene Hack Bootcamp recently. And what I will tell you is that we're going to be opening up the Gene Hack Bootcamp really, really soon in the next 8 weeks or so. So that being said, with that opening back up, you're going to want to get on the waiting list, because I keep those numbers small on purpose, because I want a really rich group. I want a rich experience for the people that go through the Gene Hack Bootcamp. So if you're interested, get on the waiting list early. It's pretty much a first come, first serve basis. And where I will actually show you the 53 optimization genes that you need to have checked in order to be functioning at your most optimal. Obviously, we don't have time to check your genetics in that course, but I do give you the actual genes and what they mean and how to interpret it. And I also run you through a light version of my questionnaire, my proprietary questionnaire that looks at that dynamic natural agility. And it tells you which one of your 5 zones, brain, body, sleep, energy, or immune, is the most out of balance, because that's where we need to start first. So you'll get an understanding on a basic level of where you are right now, what's out of balance, and what needs to be worked on. Overwhelming response from the boot camp is that people were shocked to understand which zone was out of balance. They would think they would be out of balance before completing it. I'm out of balance in this zone. And once they complete the questionnaire, they're out of balance in a totally different zone. Some people were spot on, but many people were not. And that was a huge, huge surprise for people. I love it when that surprise happens, because when that does, that means great healing is about to take place. Because once we get fine-tuned and on where to start the process, boom, the rest is history, and we can take care of things really, really, really rapidly. So anyway, again, if you're interested in the Gene Hack Bootcamp, go to drbriangBrown.com/Gene Hack. That's GENEHACK, all one word. I can't even spell today. But drbriangBrown/Gene Hack. And if you have any questions about the Gene Hack Bootcamp or the Gene Hack Accelerator, just shoot me over a direct message on Facebook or Instagram at Dr. Brian G. Brown. I'll be glad to answer any questions I possibly can. All right, stay tuned next week at noon Eastern Standard Time next Tuesday for our next Wellness Warrior segment, where I'll be interviewing another surprise guest, where we'll continue exploring ways in which you can optimize for higher performance. Most informed, most trusted, and most grateful you spent this time with us today. Until next time, stay in the zone. I'm Dr. Brian Brown.